You're traveling through another dimension. In this dimension lies the greatest television show in existence. Beyond its tongue-in-cheek science fiction exterior, we uncover a kind of wisdom, supernatural stories that reflect real human trials, a chord that rings the perfect harmony of both fantasy and reality. In the chilling space that separates the dawn from the dusk, between the dark and the light, we find the cerebral gray matter of Rod Serling's genius. Submitted for your approval, I'm counting down my favorite episodes. I won't give away the endings, so sit back and go into that wondrous dimension that's only limits are that of the mind itself. You just crossed over into the top 10 Twilight Zones. Number 10. The Little People. Two Voyagers are stranded on a deserted planet of rocks and dust. But it turns out it's not deserted. There's a whole population of people the size of ants. The commander wants to get the ship running and get off the planet, but the co-pilot is too preoccupied with living his dream, being a god to the little people. What an ego! The pleasure of this episode comes from watching the men argue and seeing the co-pilot go insane with power. An exaggerated story, but it finds truth in man's desire to control all that around him. Number 9. Printer's Devil. This is the story of a down-and-out newspaper editor on the verge of suicide, but a mysterious man greets him from the dark and turns his failure into fortune. His newspaper business becomes a booming success, but there's one stipulation. This guy is the devil. It may seem cliché, but it's actually done pretty well. He doesn't really claim he's the devil, but allows others to assume it. In fact, he says he's just a crazy old man, and that by offering him his soul would just be humoring him. This is one of 4 Twilight Zones Burgess Meredith was in, but this is the only one where he's the bad guy. His performance is amazing. Just look at that wicked smile, chewing on that beat-up cigar. Whenever he's in the scene, you can't take your eyes off him. Sometimes it's all about just having a great villain, and what better villain could there be than the devil played by Burgess Meredith? Number 8. The Masks. A dying old man is visited by his family who want nothing more than to inherit his fortune. His final wish is for them to wear grotesque masks until midnight. Masks that reflect the greed that lies beneath the whiny, ruthless characters that they are. The bulk of this episode is just a brutal onslaught of harsh words. This guy, on the brink of his own death, breaks these people down and exposes them for what they are. It's beautiful. Number 7. The Silence. Here we witness a bet. A guy who talks too much is offered $500,000 to shut up for a whole year. That means he has to spend the entire year locked in a room. If he speaks a single word, he loses the wager. The other guy keeps taunting him, trying everything he can to make him talk. He even stoops as low to say his wife is out cheating on him. It's all about dirty tricks, and neither one of these men have intentions of playing it honest, and that's why it's so riveting. Number 6. What's in the box? Okay, this is the closest I'm going to come to revealing the whole plot. You'll see why. What we have here is a bickering husband and wife, the most unhappy marriage ever. At one point, the husband actually tries to make up and says, "I love you," but that only makes things worse. On the TV, the husband sees premonitions of what's to come, and what we see is an epic battle. Talk about domestic violence. They destroy the whole living room. The whole reason this makes my top 10 is because of this one moment. Watch. No matter how many times I see it, I can't believe it. Not only does he punch her right square in the face, she crashes through a window to her death. This happens to be one episode that falls flat on having any kind of moral value. There's no second chance and no hope for this doomed couple. Number 5. It's a Good Life. This is another one with a lot of comedic value. It's about a nasty kid who's born with supernatural powers. The family around him is trapped into doing whatever he says, in constant fear that he's going to do horrible things to them.
But it's good that you're making it, Snow Anthony. It's real good.
It's funny watching grown adults being brought down to the juvenile control of a child. But half the time, you find yourself laughing because of how nervous this episode makes you feel. The tension just keeps accelerating.
Don't make any noise when the music's playing. I don't like any noise when the music's playing.
And I can't help but feel it's trying to make some kind of comment on society, maybe. How everybody acts the same way, and nobody wants to dare be the one to break the mold. Number 4, Eye of the Beholder. The whole episode takes place in a dark hospital room. A woman with an abnormal face is undergoing some kind of plastic surgery. All she wants is to look normal and not be outcast as some sort of a freak. There's a lot of sadness here, great acting, great camera work, but what's the payoff? Why is it so good? You really just have to see it. Number 3, a game of pool. Here we have a pool shark who wants nothing more than to be the best at something. He wishes for a chance to challenge the pool champion, Fats Brown. Only problem, Fats is dead. But this is the Twilight Zone, and he gets his wish. But not without being put under some pretty tight pressure, for this is a game of life or death. This episode couldn't be simpler. It's just 2 guys playing pool. But the dialogue is so well written, the conversation goes so deep to even touch upon the very meaning of life. We have a top-notch performance by Jack Klugman as the bitter challenger who just wants his respect, and Jonathan Winters as the calm champion willing to give a chance to pass his torch and words of wisdom. Number 2, Living Doll. A strict stepfather's angry when his wife and daughter come home with an expensive talking doll. The guy's an asshole.
Daddy, please!
I'm not your daddy.
But you can sympathize with him when the doll starts saying mean things.
My name is Talking Tina, and I'm going to kill you.
It's almost like the doll's the child's personal protector, but nobody believes what's happening. It only happens when the father's alone. He tries destroying the thing, but it doesn't work and only causes more friction with his family. The suspense develops at a steady pace, moving along carefully and ambiguous enough that we wonder whether the doll's really talking, his family's playing tricks, or it's just in his mind. It's easy to think of the killer doll gimmick as an old cliche, but here it's done very well. It's a terrifying and disturbing episode that still haunts me to this very day. And now for my number 1 favorite episode, Walking Distance. It's about a tired businessman who, while waiting for his car at the mechanic, goes for a little walk to pass the time. He ends up at the old neighborhood where he used to live as a child, and he finds the place just the same as he last saw it. He realizes he's actually stepped back in time to witness his own youth. He embraces it with sentimental longing, but the world he's left doesn't embrace him back. This episode leaves you with a bittersweet feeling, and you can relate to it. Everybody at some time wants to go back to their past, but this episode tells you how important it is to live your life in the present. I don't know how else to explain it, but I just feel touched by it, and it makes it my favorite Twilight Zone. With 156 episodes and so many excellent ones to choose from, it had to come down to some kind of personal preference. But whether your top 10 would be very different from mine, one thing stays the same. The show has a powerful impact in both entertainment and psychological value. It was way ahead of its time. I'm sure you're already familiar with the show, but maybe you haven't seen some of these episodes. I highly recommend you give them a watch next time you enter the Twilight Zone.